Hello guys, welcome back. Now today, I'm going to be looking at the NHL rookies going into next season and looking at who I think will win the Calder Trophy. So in this series, I'm going to list the favorites. I'm going to list the good candidates that I think will have a strong chance for it. I'm going to list my top 3 dark horses for the trophy. I'm going to list my top 3 of my prediction on how they'll actually finish. Now, to start off the list of candidates, you got to start with Rasmus Dahlin, of course, selected first overall by the Buffalo Sabres in this past 2018 NHL Draft. Of course, the age 18 defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres, and he's likely to get the most ice time out of any of these guys. Usually, defensemen usually get more ice time than forwards, but with Buffalo, they have a serious slot open for that number 2 defenseman alongside Rasmus Dahlin. So they could have a 1-2 punch of Rasmus Dahlin and Rasmus Dahlin in that next season, which will be fairly lethal for Buffalo. But I feel like Rasmus Dahlin has one of the biggest opportunities out of anybody that we'll list here, just because Buffalo's defense is not up to par with a lot of other teams. And while Buffalo has some good defensemen, Rasmus Dahlin is a generational type talent, so we'll see him slot in well. I feel like at the very least he'll play like a very elite top 4 type guy, and we can slot at him. How we can see him slot into a top 2 role with the Buffalo Sabres as soon as opening night. He definitely has that talent, and he's already NHL ready, and we've seen that for quite a long time. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays with Buffalo, but for me, he's going to be one of the best guys up there, and he's going to be a really great year 1. Now, if you'll win the Calder, that's going to be the true telling, but for me, Rasmus Dahlin has serious talent, and he can definitely contend for that trophy, and he's going to be up there for sure. But hopefully we don't have a Connor McDavid type situation to where Rasmus Dahlin gets injured and he had the lead but he loses it because of injuries. I want him to be healthy first and foremost. I want him to have a full season this next season so that he can improve into the next season where he's likely to become that elite defenseman that the Buffalo Sabres drafted him as a number 1 overall, and I think he'll come to form this season as well. Another fantastic candidate is Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks, of course, the 19 years of age at center/right winger for them, and he was selected 5th overall in the 2017 NHL Draft, and he has serious potential to be up there in the Calder voting for sure. Now, the thing is, I don't know if Pettersson is going to be one of those guys that can now really transition through the SHL into the NHL. I feel like some of these guys will have a little bit of an easier transition. The SHL is an interesting league, of course. He led the SHL in scoring against adults, but it's going to be the true telling to see how he can adapt to NHL ice, because again, it is a much different surface, and for Elias Pettersson, he is going to be very good, but I don't know if he'll be that elite type guy. Elite guy in the Calder voting that I think a lot of people will think he will be, but for me, Elias Pettersson has serious talent. He's one of the best forward prospects in the league. It's just about if he can transition this season to the NHL ice like a lot of people think he can. And this is just my personal opinion. I don't think that Pettersson is going to transition as well as some other players. He'll definitely have great potential, and I can see him being a great first-line guy for the Vancouver Canucks in their future. But for right now, I don't see Pettersson quite transitioning as well as guys like Dahlin, guys like Mittelstadt, other guys on this list. I feel like he'll have a couple of years to really get going on the NHL, and I feel like that might just be some patience that other people don't have in that organization. But for me, I feel like it's going to take a little bit longer before we see Pettersson becoming that star that he was pegged as the prospect. And of course, you also gotta talk about Andrei Svechnikov, drafted 2nd overall in 2018 draft, right behind Rasmus Dahlin for the Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, at age 18, the right winger for them. He's another serious candidate to get a lot of ice time, especially with Jeff Skinner traded. With Jeff Skinner traded, you see a lot of ice opening up on the wing. And for me, Andrei Svechnikov was always going to get a bunch of time with the Carolina Hurricanes, and he would already be NHL ready. But for me, having Jeff Skinner out of the team, having that position open for a guy like Andrei Svechnikov, I feel like he's going to get a lot of time. And for the Carolina Hurricanes, they're not the best setup, so it's kind of a situation for them that's not the greatest. But for Andrei Svechnikov, I feel like he's going to get a lot of time to play. Now, the big thing for me is where he plays, how he plays, and of course the teammates that he plays with. Carolina doesn't have the best attack in the NHL, so if they pair him with the right offensive type guys, and of course Andrei Svechnikov keeps playing like the Andrei Svechnikov that we know, he'll have a great season. And I can see him being one of the guys that breaks out this season and has a very solid one. It's all about who he plays with Carolina. Carolina has a couple of lines that are pretty so we want to see Andrei Svechnikov on the good line, on the offensive-driven line, and Andrei Svechnikov can definitely drive lines in the NHL. I feel like he'll do that next season. He could break out, but again, to me, it's all about who he plays with and, of course, the ice time that he gets. And one of the better bets in this Calder voting is Casey Mittelstadt, the Buffalo Sabres. He was drafted 8th overall in the 2017 NHL Draft, and he's prepared to just break out and have a fantastic year for the Buffalo Sabres. And of course, he played, I think it was like 5 games last season. He had 6 points. He was really good in his short stint with Buffalo last season. And for me, this upcoming season, I see him getting the most time on ice out of any rookie. Of course, being a center, Casey Mittelstadt in the Buffalo Sabres is going to be right behind Jack Eichel in that second line position. But because of Ryan O'Reilly getting traded, I feel like Mittelstadt has all the potential and all the opportunity in the world. He's already somewhat proven in the short stint last season that he can play on NHL ice, but given that second line time, with the potential that he has, that he's shown in the NCAA and all the things that he's played with, if he can continue that drive from last season, continue on to this season and play very well, as a second line center, he's going to get that opportunity. He's going to get a lot of ice time, and I feel like he'll get the most ice time out of any rookie just because the opportunity for the Buffalo Sabres to give him that is just too good. Casey Mittelstadt has so much potential, and filling in that second line spot is going to be great. So you're going to have a 1-2 punch of Eichel and Mittelstadt, which is just going to be disgusting for next season. It's just kind of crazy how much potential Mittelstadt has. He's just explosive. Mittelstadt is one of the best prospects in the NHL and one of the best American prospects in the NHL, and he'll make hay in the NHL next season with the Buffalo Sabres. He'll definitely get that opportunity. He'll definitely get the ice time, and I feel why not, because the Buffalo Sabres have that second line position just open for him. He has that opportunity, and it's all up to him to seize that. Now, next on my list is Eeli Tolvanen. Now, admittedly, I'm not as high on him as other people are, but he's still very, very good. With the Nashville Predators, of course, he was selected 30th overall in his 2017 NHL draft at age 19, a left winger / right winger for the Nashville Predators. And for me, while he's super, super good, I feel like there's definite concerns for next season when it comes to a potential Calder race. The biggest thing and the most scariest thing for me is the potential ice time. With the Nashville Predators, they're stacked on either left wing or right wing. They don't need Eeli Tolvanen, and they already showed that in the playoffs. Eeli Tolvanen did not do too much, even in this short stint of the regular season. The Nashville Predators were fine without him, but with the Eeli Tolvanen, it's ice time concerns me. With Casey Mittelstadt, he's going to get so much ice time. It's going to be, might even be too much. With Eeli Tolvanen, he's just going to get squared out, I think. He's just going to not get that as much opportunity as some other prospects will. And I feel like that's what will really defeat him in that Calder race, and that potential Calder race, while he's very, very good, and I feel like we'll see a decent season from him. The Nashville Predators just won't give that opportunity to him just because they just are too good too. And it's crazy that the Nashville Predators will kind of have to bury Eeli Tolvanen, one of the best prospects in the game right now, but it's just because their team is so good that they just can't give too much of an opportunity to him because they just have too much of a stacked team. It's pretty much the opposite with Buffalo, where they're going to give the young guys a time because they don't really have too many other options. With Nashville, they're not going to give Eeli Tolvanen too much ice time, really because they can't afford it. Eeli Tolvanen not played the greatest in the regular season, not played the greatest with the Nashville Predators, and to me, while I think he'll have a decent season if he gets that chance, the opportunity and the ice time, I don't think will be there. Now, next on my list, of course, as a Dallas Stars fan, Miro Heiskanen of the Dallas Stars, and to me, he's not going to be up there, but he's going to be very, very good. Of course, he was selected 3rd overall in the 2017 draft. For me, Miro Heiskanen is going to be a very, very solid defenseman, but I don't think we're going to hear too much about him. As a Dallas Stars fan, I feel like he's a perfect fit for that top 4, and I feel like he's going to transition pretty smoothly. But for me, Miro Heiskanen is not that gangbuster type defenseman where you hear a lot about, like PK Subban or a Brent Burns. He does a lot of the small things well. We saw that in the Olympics. We saw that in the World Junior Championships. He does the small things well that you don't really see a lot. And for me, Miro Heiskanen is just not going to get the attention that I think he deserves, at least not yet in his rookie season, when it's a pretty much stacked draft class. It's pretty much just stacked rookie class. I feel like Miro Heiskanen, while very, very good, will get a little bit buried in there. And that's coming from a diehard Dallas Stars fan who loves Miro Heiskanen to death. So you know I'm not biased there in saying that Miro Heiskanen will likely not be up there. Filip Zadina of the Detroit Red Wings, and he's a very interesting case. He's not signed yet with the Detroit Red Wings, but it's likely that he will. But for me, if he does sign, if he gets that opportunity, he'll get a lot of ice time. It just concerns me who he'll play with. Kind of like his Andrei Svechnikov with the Carolina Hurricanes, the Detroit Red Wings don't have the best supporting cast around him, and it's all about where Zadina plays and where he'll play on the Detroit Red Wings roster. If he gets that opportunity, I think he'll play very, very well, but I just think the Detroit Red Wings don't have that greatest mix of youth and veterans. They just are a little bit too old for my liking, and for me, it depends on who he plays with, but I just don't see the best supporting cast around him, which will ultimately derail his season a little bit, at least in the Calder voting. And again, Zadina is very, very good. It's just about the team not being where it should be for a Calder type guy to come up from the season. And for me, Filip Zadina is very, very good. I just don't see him being in the race as much as other people think he will be. Now, since I have listed the top contenders for the trophy, I'm going to be listing my dark horses, the players that have an outside chance but could really break out and could really surprise some people. Now, of course, last season, it was supposed to be the Nico Hischier versus Nolan Patrick battle. While Hischier had a very good season, Nolan Patrick kind of sedated until the second half. And we thought that was going to be the battle of the century, though. 1 and 2 picks battling it out. And it might still be that this next season. But, of course, we saw some underdogs in Matt Barzal, Brock Besser, late first-round picks coming up and really tearing up the league like nobody really thought they would. So, while I don't think it's going to be as much of an underdog story, as much of a surprise in the Calder voting this season as it was last season, I think that we still will see some surprises as some people don't even expect it. I feel like it'll be a very, very close race once again, and we'll see a couple of surprises, maybe not win it, but be very close in the voting. Horses going into next season. Number 1 is Ryan Donato of the Boston Bruins. He teared it up with the Boston Bruins last season. I think he was in like 12 games, he had like 9 points or something like that. He was very, very good, and I got to see some Boston games last season where he was just tearing it up. He was fantastic, and if he can translate that into next season, we'll see a very, very good Ryan Donato. And for me, Boston lost a lot of depth in this past offseason. They could use a guy like Ryan Donato to come up for the system and play very, very well like he did last season. So I feel like he'll have a definite chance and will be very, very good next season as well. At number 2, I have Calder Yamamoto of the Edmonton Oilers, and he's been a pretty underrated prospect for a long time. I think he was like 22nd overall in the 2017 draft, but he's made some definite headlines since then. WHL, he was fantastic, and I feel like he'll transition very, very well in the NHL this next season. With Edmonton, of course, him being a right winger, the Edmonton Oilers need wingers, and they'll supply some youth there. You got Puljujärvi, who will likely break out next season, and if Edmonton wants to have hopes to the playoffs, they gotta play their young guys. They gotta play guys like Puljujärvi more. They gotta play guys like Yamamoto more. And if he gets that opportunity and he plays very, very well like I think he will, I feel like he could be a surprise guy that leads Edmonton to somewhat playoff contention. Henrik Borgstrom of the Florida Panthers. Now, I think there's a little bit more an outside chance in a Calder Yamamoto or a Ryan Donato, but for me, the main concern is that center position for the Florida Panthers. They're pretty well off. They got Barkov, Trocheck, and Nick Bukestad. If Borgstrom can find time, if he can find that ice time on the Florida Panthers squad that's already pretty well off at centers, I feel like he'll play very, very well. He was fantastic in NCAA last season, and he really showed his wings. I think he played like 4 games last season, but had a goal. For the Florida Panthers, they got a serious contender in Borgstrom to be a very, very solid guy. Borgstrom is very, very underrated, and if he gets that ice time, I think he'll blow up in the NHL. It's just a matter of time. Now, on to my top 3 for the Calder voting. Now, this could go a lot of different ways. You could say Elias Pettersson wins it. You could say Tolvanen. I mean, it could go so many ways. I mean, you can see some underdogs coming up, as I already foretold. But I'm going to go down to 3 to 2 to 1 to my ultimate winner. Number 3, this is going to be a little bit of a controversial pick, but I have Rasmus Dahlin of the Buffalo Sabres, as I already mentioned him before. I feel like, as we'll get into the number 1, I feel like Rasmus Dahlin won't impress as much as maybe he gets like a couple of injuries or something, but I just don't quite feel it this next season. I feel like while he'll be very, very good in the future, I just don't see him really breaking out this next season. He'll be very, very good, but it depends on that Buffalo defense and, of course, his health, and I just think that's, honestly, Dahlin is very, very good. He's a generational type player, but I don't think we'll see that in his rookie year. And again, I know it could be completely wrong. Maybe he breaks out completely and becomes a stud in his first year. But I feel like, kind of like Connor McDavid, we'll see a year and then he'll be the star that we think he is. I have Calder Yamamoto of the Edmonton Oilers, as I already said before. Calder Yamamoto, I think, will get a very, very good opportunity, very good shot, and if he plays well, like I think he will, I think the Edmonton Oilers will be in that contender race, and of course, if you make the playoffs as a rookie, and you have a very good season, you're likely to show up in those Calder votings, and I feel like Calder Yamamoto having a great season would do wonders for the Edmonton Oilers, and I feel like they could be a playoff contender next season if guys like them really improve. And for number 1, the player who I think will win the Calder Trophy next season, in the 2018-2019 season, I have Casey Mittelstadt of the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I picked Casey Mittelstadt because I think he's going to get the biggest opportunity out of any of these players. Besides like Jack Eichel, Buffalo doesn't have too many center depths. So having him in the second line center position, if Eichel gets injured, he's going to get serious playing time. He'll get the opportunity for sure, and he'll get the ice time. And with the talent he's already shown in the NHL, I think it's just a matter of time, and I think it's this next season where he really breaks out into the star that he's shown to be. But for me, I feel like we'll see 2 Buffalo players in there because I think both of them will have very, very good seasons as we see Buffalo improving mightily. Now, of course, there are tons of rookies that can make the show and can make the race in next season. So I want to know what your picks are for the Calder race next season. What are your top 3? And of course, which rookie do you think will win the Calder Trophy next season? That has been it for today, guys. If you guys enjoy it, make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Again, tell me down below what is your Calder picks. What are your top 3? And of course, what do you think of my list and who I picked Casey Mittelstadt to win the Calder Trophy? I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.